Alright. I know that I promised that I'd cool it on the gut microbiome videos, but this shit just keeps getting wilder and wilder. And I'm talking both figuratively and literally. Because now they're saving the day in a new way, potentially mitigating one of the biggest emerging health threats in this modern materialistic world: forever chemicals, which may have to forever somewhere else if this new data holds to be true. Here's what you need to know. Yo, what is up? Welcome back to another week of How to Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftandbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and longevity and do it in an odd, weird, interesting, and highly sarcastic way. Now, I think a good place to start would probably be by defining what exactly forever chemicals actually are. And it's really quite intuitive. They are often synthetically created compounds which, due to their engineering, have extraordinary chemical stability, rendering them highly resistant to heat, water, oil, and grease. A combo which makes them really hard to break down. Thus the forever part. And they're increasingly persistent in both the environment and, unfortunately, the human body, with the most talked about and famous of them all being per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, otherwise known as PFASs, which we'll go with from here on out. And since their introduction in the 1940s and 50s, they have been extremely integrated into a myriad of industrial applications and commercial products worldwide, commonly playing a star or supporting role in nonstick coatings for cookware, firefighting foams, water-resistant fabrics and solutions, food packaging, cleaning products, along with various cosmetics and body care items, thus explaining the getting in you piece. And the reality is, if you participate in modern society, which if you're watching this video right now, you probably do, exposure to these compounds have become virtually unavoidable. But that's not all. It actually gets worse. It's been observed that these compounds not only accumulate in the environment, but also in the human body, as reports from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention have indicated the presence of PFASs in the blood of roughly 97% of Americans, highlighting human exposure at just a massive scale. Which makes me really want to know who those 3% are and what the hell they're doing. Something we may or may not be talking about in just a little bit. And listen, I wish I could tell you that all of this stops with a simple, benign accumulation, but that doesn't seem to be the case either, as epidemiological data has consistently linked PFAS exposure to a diverse array of adverse health outcomes. Things like immunotoxicity, endocrine disruption, decreased fertility, development delays in children, elevated cholesterol levels, along with increased risk of certain cancers and cardiovascular diseases. Again, only associations, but also, yikes, prompting some experts to even describe them as slow poisons. Because unlike substances which elicit immediate acute toxicity, these forever chemicals exert their detrimental effects over prolonged periods, compounding at low concentrations. Characteristics which make their detection and direct attribution to specific health effects particularly challenging to nail down, which I think we'd all agree makes any help we can get mitigating this known inevitable problem extremely welcomed. And wouldn't you know it, it seems as if the trillions of microorganisms calling our intestinal tubing home have some interesting PFAS powers. Let's see what this new, first-of-its-kind study uncovered. Researchers out of the University of Cambridge sought to investigate whether human gut bacteria possess the ability to bioaccumulate and help excrete PFASs. Essentially, they look to see if microbes commonly found in the human gut could ingest and store these chemicals within their bacterial cells, ultimately stopping them from getting absorbed through the human gut wall and entering the hottest club on the biological streets: club circulation. Interesting notion, isn't it? One which, if true, could open up a new door of potential therapies for this growing world problem. So to do this, researchers deployed a multifaceted approach. First, they worked to identify specific families and species of bacteria naturally present in the human gut that demonstrated a capacity to bioaccumulate various PFAS molecules within their cellular structures. Then, to understand the speed and efficiency of PFAS uptake, they brought the experiment to the petri dish, or in vitro, conducting comprehensive 24-hour screens across different bacterial strands to assess their respective accumulation capacities under controlled conditions. And with those strands that showed promise, which there were about 20, they created a community called COM20, which they introduced into the guts of germ-free mice, effectively humanizing the mouse microbiome and providing a more physiologically relevant model to study human gut bacterial interactions. Yeah, I told you it was multifaceted. And to study these effects even more, they compared groups of mice colonized with communities containing either 5 high accumulating or 5 low accumulating bacterial strands, measuring fecal excretion of these forever chemicals throughout the entirety of the study. With that, we move from the smelly methodology to the smelly findings, which were quite interesting. And if you were wondering, yeah, keep the nose pins on. Here's what they found. First, the team uncovered that several species of common human gut bacteria actively bioaccumulated PFASs, meaning that they don't merely absorb these toxic chemicals, but they internalize them and store them within their cells. Pretty cool, I know. And that's before I tell you anything about these nifty internal compartments, because this was one of the most remarkable observations from the study. It was found that these bacterium have microscopic PFAS storage units. Yep, like the ones you rent out when you're moving and totally forget about. And it's these dense clusters within their cells which researchers believe play a protective role for the bacteria themselves, isolating the toxin from their core machinery and allowing them to thrive and survive even in highly contaminated environments. Not too shabby for those so-called stupid single-celled organisms, huh? Moving to the humanized mouse model, where the guts were colonized with the COM20 community of bacteria, researchers found that the orally consumed PFASs were observed to be rapidly accumulated by these bacteria. And this accumulation led to a significant increase in the fecal excretion of PFASs when compared to the germ-free control mice. Huh, you don't say. Those sandbagging bacterial SOBs at it again. Interestingly, the laboratory in vitro experiments revealed the impressive speeds this accumulation happened, finding that many bacteria soaked up between 25 and 74% of the exposed PFASs within minutes of initial contact. Yeah, minutes. Maybe we're not doomed after all. However, I must call out, everything was not rainbows and bacterial unicorns either, as it was observed that this accumulation was not uniform across all PFAS types and bacterial strands. There was quite a bit of variance that will have to be investigated and understood with future studies. But, I mean, come on. How freaking interesting and amazing is the pure notion of this protective effect? Beneficial gut microbes just doing beneficial gut microbe things. Making me wonder if there's anything we can do here and now to supercharge our gut, to supercharge this cleanup, which I'd love to think there is a definite yes answer to. But, as you know, things, especially biological things, are usually not that easy. However, we're going to take a stab at it anyway, because there are some clear and concise protocols that will most likely make a difference. The first being the fact that the best strategy you can likely deploy here is not a gut-focused one. However, it does, like everything else, indirectly affect the gut in a good way. might I add. And that strategy is to cultivate a lifestyle which minimizes your exposure to PFASs in the first place. Duh, right? And since we know complete elimination is a pipe dream, the more realistic minimization and excretion optimization strategy is a much more feasible and obtainable goal, with some super effective first steps being filtering your water via reverse osmosis or carbon block for drinking and cooking, opting for stainless steel or glass containers, ditching the non-stick cookware, going with glass for your food storage, and definitely not microwaving in plastic. I know none of you do it. Prioritizing unpackaged fresh foods. Being skeptical of any water-resistant anything, materials and products. Avoiding PTFE or any perfluoral and floral ingredients in your cosmetic, cleaning products, body care items, and other household goods. Opting for natural everywhere you can. And combining all of these things with habits that put your cellular and metabolic self in a position to operate efficiently, which typically makes your microbiome more diverse and comprised with health-promoting beneficial communities of bacteria. The top drivers here being a real food diet, consistent high-quality sleep, more nature, less stress, and daily badonkadonking. It's really as simple and difficult as that. Because as we know, this feeling how you're capable of feeling thing is a consistent game of owning your health, which is great because that puts you very much in control, but also sucks because you need to be on top of and consistently executing. Exactly why the slow and steady, making it a lifestyle rather than a chore, is the ideal approach for most people, and one we preach across the hundreds of videos on this channel. Letting the gradual improvements in cellular and metabolic function reinforce themselves with gradually feeling more and more effing awesome. Oh, and when you help your cellular and metabolic self, you often help your microbes in the gut and beyond help you even more. Funny how it works like that, right? And don't worry, I'll keep reminding you. So keep those notifications on and keep owning it.